And as soon as these fires broke out, I approved the Fire Management Assistance Grants. That's a term of art and how we get help to local officials. These grants cover California's firefighting costs for things like firefighting equipment, firefighters' salaries, and special capabilities like aircraft. Next, yesterday I immediately approved Governor Newsom's request for what they call, and I know this is all sounds like government talk, but it's called the Major Disaster Declaration. This declaration allows folks, at the request of the governor, the declaration allows folks who have been impacted to get immediate cash assistance to cover things like everything from groceries to baby formula to prescriptions, because as you've seen and you've reported, a lot of these places are burned to the ground. There's not a single thing left in their homes. And so if they contact disasterassistance.gov, anybody who's lost everything or anything of consequence, disasterassistance.gov or 1-800-2, I beg your pardon, 1-800-621-3362. That's disasterassistance.gov, 1-800-621-3362 to get the kind of help they need for everything from the basics that they don't have access to right now. And this morning, due to the magnitude of the disaster, I was talking with the governor, and he requested if I could increase the federal funding that was authorized under this legislation from 75% to 90%. We're increasing it to 100% of all the costs to be covered by the federal government for both the fire management assistance grants and the elements of what they call the disaster declaration. So today I'm announcing that the federal government will cover 100% of the cost for 180 days. This is going to pay for things like debris and hazard material removal, temporary shelters, first responders' salaries, and all necessary measures to protect life and property. And folks, I want to underscore, I told the governor and local officials, spare no expense to do what they need to do and contain these fires and in their communities that have really been devastated. And we're doing literally everything we can at a federal level. That's also why I call this group of folks around this table of all relevant federal departments and agencies together to discuss what more we can do. And some of the folks are on the screen as well. Before we begin things, here's an update on where things stand right now. First, we're focused on helping contain these fires. Over the last 24 hours, the United States Forest Service, working with state and local responders, has suppressed over 50 fire starts. And the fire in the Hollywood Hills has been contained by brave firefighters risking their lives. Right now, 3 major fires are still burning in the Pacific Palisades, in Pasadena, and in Sylmar. I want to be clear. What I know from talking to the governor, that there are concerns out there that there's also been a water shortage. The fact is, the utilities understandably shut off power because they're worried the lines that they carried energy were going to be blown down and spark additional fires. But the Cal Fire, when it did that, it cut off the ability to generate pumping the water. That's what caused the lack of water in these hydrants. And so Cal Fire is bringing in generators to get these pumps up and working again so that there's no longer a shortage of water coming out of these hydrants. I'm also surging all federal resources possible to Southern California, including 400 additional federal firefighters, over 30 firefighting helicopters and planes, federally supplied, firefighting planes and helicopters, and 8 Department of Defense C-130s that are equipped to suppress wildfires. Today, the Secretary of Defense also authorized 500 wildfire ground clearing personnel from the Defense Department. And I've directed the department to continue working with Governor Newsom to identify additional resources that can be provided for public safety and security. And We've secured additional firefighters and firefighting aircraft from our ally in Canada as well. I also want everyone in Southern California to know we're going to keep at it. We're sticking with this. We expect there may be a temporary break in the winds, but in some areas the winds are likely to continue well into next week. And so we're going to continue to sending everything, literally, every resource we can find that's appropriate to help the governor and the first responders. Second, we're focused on helping people who have been displaced or in many cases lost everything. You've reported on, you've seen the homes just burned to the ground, whole areas burned to the ground, large areas. They've been displaced and they've lost everything. As I said, since the fire started, FEMA has been working with the state to help residents get shelter, groceries, prescriptions, and other critical goods like baby formula. We're also sent FEMA Director Criswell to Los Angeles to manage our response on the ground. She was supposed to be on this call, but we have the deputy here because she is out in the field with the governor right now, surveying what's going on. Let me close with a message to the people of Southern California. We are with you. We're not going anywhere. To the firefighters and first responders, you are heroes. Many of these firefighters are out there risking their lives, and some, well, I won't go beyond that, but risking their lives, and while their own homes are in danger, their families are in danger. To the firefighters and first responders, you really are, it's not hyperbole, you're heroes. You're genuinely heroes. And the worst, this is the most widespread, devastating fire in California's history. It's amazing. And there's nobody who understands it better than the press have been covering this on a minute-to-minute basis. And you literally have to run into the flames, these firefighters. You know, that old expression, God made man, then he made a few firefighters. Who runs into flames? You know, in doing so, you're leaving your own families and who may be in harm's way as well. So we owe you. And we're going to make sure that you get every resource you need, every possible resource you need. You know, to the families who have been impacted by this disaster, you're living through a nightmare, I know. And I promise you, we're going to help you get through this and eventually recover and rebuild. I'm going to turn it over now to the Vice President before we go on to the folks in the various cabinet positions as well as agencies that control these issues. Madam Vice President, I know you're directly affected, so you fire away. No pun intended.
Indeed. Thank you, Mr. President, and also for the work that everyone around this table has been doing with the appropriate sense of urgency, because this is an urgent matter. What we have seen in California, and in particular in Southern California, is apocalyptic in terms of the nature of it and the unprecedented nature of it as well. And what we are seeing is a situation that is extremely dynamic. It is very much in play, and to some degree unpredictable, because we are literally waiting to see which way the wind blows. And I cannot praise enough the local leaders, most of whom I have talked with, and in particular our firefighters, who, as the President has said, they are working around the clock. They are working 12-hour, even longer shifts, and they are doing it with a sense of optimism, but also with an understanding of how serious this moment is and how important their work is to real lives and real people. Thousands of families have been displaced. Many of those families with young children with nowhere to go. And what we know is that this is a matter of current urgency, but this is also something that is going to have an impact for months and years to come. And on that point, I will also make note of the fact that, sadly, many insurance companies have canceled insurance for a lot of the families who have been affected and will be affected, which is only going to delay or place an added burden on their ability to recover. And I think that is an important point that must be raised, and hopefully there can be some way to address that issue, because these families, so many of them, otherwise will not have the resources to recover in any meaningful way. And many of them have lost everything. In the midst, however, of all of the trauma that has occurred, we have seen extraordinary acts of heroism. I'm hearing countless stories of strangers helping strangers. People who are opening their homes where they are intact and have not had to evacuate, opening their homes to neighbors, to friends of neighbors, feeding them and providing shelter for them. And I do think that it speaks to the best of who we are as a country, which is in times of crisis, we find the heroes among us who we may not have known before, but act out of a sense of courage, but also a sense of community. And I applaud all those who are approaching this crisis with that spirit. And the bottom line is this: there are incredible heroes every day who are working right now in California on the front lines of this fire. And in particular, I want to thank the firefighters for all they are doing. They are, as the president said, putting themselves in harm's way. And they are doing the work that is about helping people who are perfect strangers to them and doing it in some of the highest moments of need that anyone could face. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Liz Sherwood-Randall.
Turn it back to me.
Okay, back to the president.
Look, I've had a chance to speak with a lot of elected officials, including the senators, some of the congresspersons in the region, as well as the vice president as well. And I want to be clear that one of the reasons I've asked this larger group to get together is because they control the very agencies that are needed from the federal level to get things done. And you know, we're in a situation where the U.S. Forest Service Chief, Randy Moore, is here. And he's going to provide an update in the fire situation in Los Angeles and discuss how the U.S. Fire Service, the U.S. Forest Service, is assisting Los Angeles and the state of California with fighting the wildfire, including the action his team has taken to suppress new fire starts. So, Chief, why don't you fire away?
Thank you, Mr. President. Madam Vice President, it's great to see you. I, too, consider California my home.
Yes.
And so it's great to be here to talk about this dramatic situation that we have. So the Forest Service and the Department of Interior are actively engaged in supporting the response to the wildfires in Southern California. And there are 4 major fires that we currently have going on. The Forest Service is in unified command with the LA County as well as other local city agencies. We're looking at the Eaton, the Hearst, and the Lydia. And if you look at that area there, that's the northernmost part of that area where the fires have taken place. The Palisades Fire, which CAL FIRE is in control of. And then we have a new start, which is this Sundown Fire that just started last night, and it also has potential to expand quite significantly just based on the location it's at, but also the winds that are expected to continue. Right now, when I look at the mutual aid system in California, I want you to know that it's second to none in terms of how that system works and how it really moves to activate the federal firefighting community and how it is activated and engaged. You know, every year we prepare for these Santa Ana winds. It's just that what is happening now is happening sooner. It's happening at a time now where we normally are at our lowest point in the fire year. And the fact that these fires are taking place now, it says that there are things that are going on in our climate that is creating truly year-round fire situations, and it's something that we all need to be mindful of, and this is a good indication of that. To give you an example, that if a fire starts from any ignition source during these Santa Ana winds, it has the potential for explosive growth and spread. And when that happens under these wind-driven conditions, it's very difficult to control. Now, in addition to this, when these winds are high, the aviation resources cannot fly. So it limits a lot of the potential area of support. As of this morning, there were over 4,000 firefighters that was assigned to these large fires. 600 or so were currently federal work, which means Forest Service and Department of Interior.
You know, in this briefing that we've been watching live from the White House, the news really is that the federal government is surging its resources. The president talking a moment ago about how they'll cover 100% of the cost for 180 days, which obviously goes beyond the presidency of Joe Biden. It would include first responders' salaries, all measures to protect life and property. The quote from the president when he was speaking is that we will, quote unquote, spare no expense. Now other officials going on and updating what is a very fluid situation. Now it just depends on the winds and what happens this afternoon into this evening out west.
Thanks so much for watching. Just go to joinnn.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.